Hello, I am Pastor Ricky from Enon Baptist Church. I recently read a letter, a first century letter, written to a lot of Christians that had been spread throughout a large area of the Roman Empire, where the author was calling for these folks to be humble and submissive in three areas of their life. First, he asked them to be humble and submissive to government, societal, or even economic institutions under which they lived, even if those institutions were harsh and unfair and immoral. He called for their humble submission to those institutions. Secondly, he called for humility and submission inside the home, between spouses even. And then finally, he called for humility and submission in the context of a community of believers in which they live. Now, I would ask this, though. Who in their right mind wants to be humble and submissive? It's difficult to do that in church with believers. It's certainly hard to do that with your spouse, and incredibly difficult to see the value in being humble and submissive to unfair or oppressive government institutions. So I think the answer is no one in their own mind wants to be humble and submissive under those situations. But the Apostle Peter, who wrote the letter, he said that those who are humble and submissive receive grace from God, and on the contrary, that God actually resists those who are proud. And he goes on to conclude his letter by saying that when we are humble and submissive, God then steps in, shows us favor, and strengthens us. He establishes us, and he even uses a word, and he says that God settles us. So think about it. There's two ideas. There's, on one hand, a prideful, antagonistic person pursuing by their own power what they want. And on the other hand, you get the feel that there's an idea of humble submission and trusting that God will show favor and work out good for the benefit of the person that's humble and submissive. So, who in the right mind would be humble and submissive? The person that wants God on their side rather than the person that wants to be resisted by God. We know all throughout Scripture there's a common theme of God raising up the humble and submissive and actually putting down and resisting the prideful, antagonistic type person. So, I would encourage you to be different, and I would encourage you to be humble and submissive in society, in the home, and even in the church. It's pretty tricky. It's tough, but I think it's worth it. I love you guys. I'll talk to you soon.